A couple of weeks ago, I was on my way to a workshop in Zurich. I come from Switzerland. So I was sitting in the train, and as usually, I was eavesdropping on the conversations around me. And I've overheard two people. They looked about my age, talking about their jobs at a bank. It's Switzerland, after all. And they were vividly discussing whether the Dow Jones will hit the 36,000 mark anytime this year, and what kind of financial opportunities this will create for them. The workshop I was heading towards was with a foundation supporting small businesses in sub-Saharan Africa, and they wanted to increase their impact. So quite a stark contrast to what I was overhearing. And I was wondering, does it have to be? Are financial gains really what excites us? Isn't there more to our work? More meaning, more purpose, more positive impact? But how do we get there? And to answer this question, I would like to highlight how nonprofits can act as role models for companies. Now, if you hear nonprofit, some of you might be thinking of Birkenstock-wearing Greenpeace activists. I love Birkenstock, don't get me wrong. But nonprofits are much more diverse than that. And you probably know more than that. It's a little hard to see you, but I would like you to raise your hand if you're a member of a sports club. Not that many, still some. How many of you have volunteered for an organization? Good, a lot more. How many of you, how many of you have donated money or collected money for a good cause? The majority? Good. Some of you might have gone thrifting at a Salvation Army shop, or regularly used Wikipedia, or looked at the ADAC traffic report. So most likely you know a lot more nonprofits than you think. In fact, the average German is member of 5 associations. Now, if you've just raised your hand, picture someone from this organization coming up to you and asking if you would spend your Saturday for them volunteering at the Brandenburger Tor, selling cake for a breast cancer awareness campaign, or coaching kids at a local soccer tournament for free, volunteering. Most likely you'll say yes, right? Now imagine someone from your paid job, from regular work, comes up to you and asks you if you would spend your Saturday at the office working without being paid for it. Right? Now, why in the world, though, would you spend your Saturday doing something that requires effort without being paid for it? Why at all? Because you see a purpose in it. A purpose that goes beyond simply making profits. And don't get me wrong, being profit-oriented is not a bad thing. I'm an economist. I like money. But even more, I like to create value. And to me, value is created when serving people and their needs. And historically, many businesses have been founded because someone saw a societal need for something and then started a business to address that need. Think of the railway or the light bulb, for example. Even if there might have been other motives in play, becoming more efficient, more profitable, they saw a societal need and reacted to it. Now today, how many larger companies do you know that are actually addressing a societal need? Most of these companies have a smart marketing team that give you the feeling like you need something and then sell it to you. I can't really imagine people 100 years ago thinking they would need a 300 euro hairdryer to be happy. In the 19th century, when people in Europe became increasingly poor, business owners realized that in order to have a flourishing economy, they needed to help their workers get out of poverty. Because an economy is only as good as its weakest member. So that was the start of many organizations and social initiatives that were founded alongside businesses with the goal of helping these employees. Again, think of today. You read in the newspapers about millionaires, billionaires, paying their workers minimum wage and then flying off into space to explore even further commercial opportunities. So somewhere along the lines of history, something got lost. And businesses became more profit-oriented, and another type of organization started to increase. And these organizations did not distribute their profits to their shareholders, but reinvested every coin into addressing the problems caused by an economy that constantly exploited humans and nature. So organizations evolved into these two very distinct types of organizations, profit-oriented business or nonprofit organization. And in an effort to bring these two sides closer together, the question for a long time has been, how entrepreneurial can nonprofits be? And nonprofit organizations have become a lot more entrepreneurial. In a survey conducted in Germany 10 years ago, a majority of respondents of nonprofit organizations answered that they note an increase in pressure, market-like structures, efficiency, competition. And that trend is still going strong, especially in areas where we find nonprofit and for-profit providers operating, such as childcare or healthcare or even some social service organizations. Nonprofits have adapted and become very much like businesses in their management structures. And some of this becoming more business-like has been beneficial for the nonprofit sector. Melinda Gates, in her TED Talk 2010, I think, highlighted 3 things that nonprofits can learn from companies like Coca-Cola. Maybe you've heard the talk. Tap into entrepreneurial talent, use clever marketing, and be more data-driven. And I think nonprofits have done their homework and have learned a lot. But coming back to your weekend off and how you would like to spend it, and looking at the problems our world is facing now that I think are so often caused by people valuing profits over purpose again and again, I wonder if we should still ask how these organizations that you volunteer for, that you donate to, can become more entrepreneurial. Instead, tonight, I would like to ask, how purpose and impactful can companies be? And that's where nonprofits come into play. Nonprofits, by definition, are not for profit, but for purpose. As said, for them, profits is not the end, it's means to an end. They have a social, cultural, and environmental goal that gives them reason to be. And this mission orientation, as we call it, makes them great at attracting resources. And not just financial ones, raising funds, but also human. This might be employees accepting lower wages, or volunteers like you. Volunteers that don't just tend to the barbecue at the soccer tournament, but that might be in the board or even president of the board and invest a considerable amount of time and effort into managing these organizations. And this mission orientation also makes nonprofits great at employer branding. This common cause that they have turns the stakeholders, the people around them, into great brand ambassadors for them. Now, as said, purpose is not something that can just be copied. But I think if companies want to be part of the societies they claim they're a part of and the communities they're embedded in, there are some things that they can learn from nonprofits in how to be more purpose-oriented. And tonight, I would like to highlight 3 of those. First, nonprofits rely on the people at the bottom of the organization for their knowledge. Nonprofits very early on usually develop bottom-up structures. They're founded by someone who sees a need for something and then dedicates the organization or even his or her life to helping the poor, fighting climate change, lobbying for a specific cause. So these people usually have a pretty good idea of what the end user needs. Companies might conduct a market analysis or customer survey to find out what their end user, what their customer wants in their next designer shoe or chair or hairdryer. But for nonprofits, it's a little different. They actually give responsibility and decision-making power to the people at the bottom of the organizational chart, those working with their end users. And I think the trend that I observe among companies toward flatter hierarchies, new work models, is proof that there is something to that. Second, nonprofits are masters of participative processes. They usually involve a number of stakeholders into their strategic development. As said, companies may do a customer survey or a market analysis to set their next strategic goal. But have you ever heard of a company inviting their supplier, their local community representative, or even the customer's families to a strategy meeting? I don't think so. But nonprofits know that they fight complex societal problems that they cannot solve on their own. The solutions are often complex too. So for them, it just makes sense to involve other relevant stakeholders to the table when setting their next strategic goal. Third, nonprofits differentiate between output and outcome, and they focus on the latter. And to clarify, output is what you produce. Outcome is what you actually achieve. And this influences the planning cycle of an organization. To see if your program or service actually achieves the desired outcome, so the effect on society, for example, you gotta have time. So they have planning cycles of 8 to maybe up to 15 years. Companies might have 3, 4, 5 years strategic plans. But if the quarterly numbers are bad and the shareholders are unhappy, they got to change course. So I agree with Melinda Gates that being data-driven can be very beneficial for any organization. Using real-time data is great. But it is a privilege that should only be earned once you know what intended and unintended consequences your program, service, or product has on society. Now, purpose is a little different for everyone. Not everybody gets that same warm, fuzzy feeling about purpose. But I think if companies really want to attract the attention of a younger generation, they got to offer them more than just symbolic acts of social behavior. I think it is not enough to just have a corporate social responsibility department somewhere in your basement, or add the pride flag to your LinkedIn profile once a year, or even promise to reduce air travel by 2%. You gotta offer us more than symbolic acts of social behavior. And not just for potential employees, but also for the companies themselves. Intrinsically motivated workers take fewer sick days off, are more productive, more efficient, better brand ambassadors, and generally more fun to work with. And for us as employees who spend a considerable amount of our lives at our desks, at work, at our jobs, we need to find true purpose in the work that we do. And I really wish that the companies around us would start thinking about that and thinking about the impact that they want to have on society and the impact that they maybe unintentionally already have on society. So if you work in a company that you think could benefit from a little more purpose orientation, why not try to get the people working with the end user more involved, and not just the marketing team? Or invite some external stakeholders to your next strategy meeting. Hear them out, benefit from their knowledge. And in your own daily work, think of the outcome you want to achieve, and not just the output you produce. And make this outcome your goal and motivation. And don't be discouraged when your company's not as purpose-oriented tomorrow as you would like it to be. It takes a lot of like-minded people, and it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But maybe one day you will go to work in your Birkenstocks and realize that you love doing what you do. You don't even care whether the Dow Jones will hit the 36,000 mark. Maybe you've never cared, I don't. And that you can say with conviction that what you do actually has a positive impact on this planet. And then I'm sure this impact is much bigger than you think. Thank you very much.